Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, King, DL, Lauren Frey, Grim Clover, Internet, Blood Sports, City of Steel, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, lately, I've been thinking a lot about the failures of Square Enix, and especially the failures of some of their games. I've talked a little bit about Final Fantasy 16. I've talked a little bit about Dragon Quest 12. I've talked about the Embracer acquisition. I believe I've talked about them being open to joint ventures with other companies because they're running out of money. But I think what it all comes down to is that a lot of their smaller projects are failing. And I think there is no better example to this than Babylon's Fall. For those of you who aren't aware, Babylon's Fall is the Platinum Games developed title published by Square Enix that was supposed to be a gas live service game. And it launched to absolute crickets. Like, anyone who played this game despised it. It is, I think, generally thought of as the worst game of the decade so far. That's how bad it is. And considering it's attached to Platinum Games, that's typically how I've talked about the game, is talking about it's the Platinum Games side of things, how they're failing, how they're going bankrupt, how they can't continue doing what they're doing. But really, Square Enix is involved as well. They went from the highly anticipated, highly reviewed, highly beloved Nier Automata, as ill-deserved as that is, to Babylon's Fall, one of the least successful games of all time, right? Babylon's Fall is so terrible that GameStop is actually destroying copies because they can't sell them. Now, the discs will be worthless soon, less than worthless. They'll be taking up shelf space, because Square has announced that they're shutting down the game, and as a result, the disc just isn't going to be worth anything. No different than Destiny or any of these other Marvel games. Square took a huge gamble pushing for this gas shit. I think more than any other Japanese company. They really pushed the Marvel thing. They really thought that they would be able to use the Marvel IP to establish themselves as the king of the games as a service model, when in reality nobody cares for the games as a service model. It is doomed to failure unless you're a brain dead consumer shill, someone who consumes products like Destiny. It's just not going to happen. Nobody is going to look at something like Marvel's Avengers and think, oh, I'd like to try that 5 years from now, because the game in all likelihood is going to be shut down 5 years from now because it lost them that much money. The entire concept of games as a service, it doesn't seem to take into account the fact that games might fail, and because you're expected to continue updating it and continue giving them giving what players you do have additional content, it's becoming clear, I think, that games as a service is not only a risky model, it is a deadly one. Because now Square Enix is in this position where they're wasting resources developing games that do not have an audience or player base at all. And because they're live service, once the service goes down, suddenly even those people who are loyal, who are consuming your product, they won't be physically able to play the game anymore. It just won't be functional. So what's happening is that Square Enix is wasting a ton of resources on games that can't possibly turn a profit. And I think that is really seriously starting to impact them. People on forums and stuff like that, it seems there's a general consensus that we're at the point where it seriously feels like Square Enix is basically coasting off the success of Final Fantasy 14. Because that is a subscription model that did take off, that did have a player base, in part because of the decline of WoW, which is a whole other can of worms. But I don't think that I'll be able to carry them forever, because I have been seeing lately more and more complaints about Final Fantasy 14's plot structure, about its characterization, about its gameplay loop. People are starting to get tired of Final Fantasy 14, just like they started getting tired of World of Warcraft. And once another alternative comes around, which is inevitable, doubtless a lot of those players will jump ship to the new MMO, or kids, younger players will go on to the new thing. Nobody's going to care about Final Fantasy 14. It is inevitable that eventually Final Fantasy 14 will fall from grace. And when that happens, what exactly is Square going to fall back on? Are they going to fall back on Final Fantasy 16? No, that game probably isn't going to do as well as Final Fantasy 7R, which in and of itself was a failure. There was a lot more hype around Final Fantasy 7R when it first came out because of the brand name and because of like all these YouTube shills. Like, it didn't lead to long-term success for the company, but at least initially they were able to say like, oh, we sold a couple of million units. That's not going to happen to Final Fantasy 16. Like, that's not going to happen to Final Fantasy 7R Part 2. Like, we are going to see a lot of diminishing returns to this kind of stuff. And in fact, that's actually been what's happening, is that ever since the release of Final Fantasy X, each subsequent Final Fantasy has been getting more and more controversial. People are getting tired of what Square Enix is doing. And, like, outside of a few outlier teams, people like the Octopath guys who are just been great. I cannot emphasize enough how they're kind of the black sheep of this company right now, who are putting out legitimately great things in spite of everything. Like, in spite of a handful of people putting out like the occasional good game, everything on the horizon from Square Enix looks terrible, right? Like Kingdom Hearts 4, like who's looking forward to that? Nobody wanted a Kingdom Hearts 4. Right? Like, people wanted the story to conclude with 3. It's the Shenmue 3 problem. Why are you continuing the story to Kingdom Hearts? Like, this isn't a franchise that was designed to go on forever, right? Like, it should have had a clear beginning, middle, and end. But because it doesn't, because it's going on forever, there's no reason to, like, get excited about it. Like, from what I understand from Kingdom Hearts 4, what they're going to try to do is try to make it, like, live-action remake-focused, which is not going to resonate with me at all. Like, I don't see myself, like, going into that all. I fully expect to never buy Kingdom Hearts 4. In fact, I still haven't finished Kingdom Hearts 3, even though I do own it. Like, it took me I bought like Kingdom Hearts 3 for like $15 off eBay or something, Amazon or something. Still haven't finished it. Like, I don't care to. Like, I haven't seen the Disney films. I don't care to see those either. Like, I went from being like one of the biggest Kingdom Hearts fans there was with the first 2 games to like not giving a shit by the third, because they took too long to put it out. And when they did put it out, it wasn't appealing to me. Like, Kingdom Hearts 3 is like a massive step down in quality from the original, just like 2 was a step down from the original. Like, it's just, why exactly do I care? At this point, all I say is that, like, play the original if you want. It's by far the best game in the series, but like, it does go downhill from there. Like, plot-wise, gameplay-wise, like, everything just goes downhill. Like, at this point, I kind of tell people, yeah, Ys is better. There are better alternatives. I myself would want to produce an action RPG franchise if I had the ability to do so. Like, I love the genre, and I think Kingdom Hearts kind of dominated it for a good long while. But now it's like, there are better games out there. I think there are better games being made, and I think, like, in long term, Kingdom Hearts will not be able to compete, especially now that, like, Disney is becoming increasingly unpopular with their their woke decisions and stuff like that. I don't expect their Kingdom Hearts 4 to be nearly as big as Kingdom Hearts 3. It doesn't have the same kind of anticipation behind it. And I think what's more, they don't have like any more Disney films to adapt. Like, what Disney World, hypothetically, would you want to see adapted for Kingdom Hearts? Like, at this point, like, there's a handful of stuff they haven't really done, but like, for the most part, all the classic films that worked, they actually incorporated in creative ways, like, have been done already. There's no going back to that. Not really. Like, they seem to be doing the remakes. That's not appealing to me. I don't like the sound of that at all. Like, the game just seems like it's going to be a disaster, honestly. Like, it's a game really nobody asked for. Like, it's a lot like the Shenmue 3 thing, where, like, when people say they wanted Kingdom Hearts 3, they meant they wanted, like, one grand finale for the game. That people aren't going to be strung along and, like, go along with your bullshit forever. Right? Like, they wanted a conclusion to Sora's story, and you just did not provide it for them. And as a result, I think a lot of audiences just do not care anymore. Like, the most well-known thing about Kingdom Hearts, I would say, in the new 20s, is that it's convoluted as fuck and makes no sense. Like that's what I always see people saying. So much so that a bunch of people, YouTubers trying to shill Kingdom Hearts 4 are like trying to downplay this aspect of the plot. Like, oh no, it's not that confusing. You're just low IQ, bro. I've played like most major JRPG franchises. Okay, I know what a good JRPG plot is like. Okay, you can't trick me. You can't manipulate me into thinking that like, oh, I'm just too stupid to understand the plot of Kingdom Hearts. No, I've been playing these games for 20 years. I know they're stupid. And in the case of the first one, I'll like defend the weirdness and the stupidity because I unironically love the first one. But like, generally speaking, for the vast majority of these games, like they're just dumb, like so dumb that there's no possible reason to stick with them unless you just enjoy the gameplay that much. And because the game isn't that tight, because there are better alternatives, especially these days, I don't see people sticking with them. I dislike Kingdom Hearts. I dislike what it turned into. I dislike Square. Like, what exactly is going to keep me like coming back to Square Enix in the near future? Nothing. I feel that as a gamer, as a Nintendo fan, I suppose I should just call myself a Nintendo gamer because I don't play games from other companies. As a Nintendo gamer, what exactly from Square Enix is getting me fired up? And this is coming from someone whose like most anticipated game of 2023 is Octopath Traveler 2, right? Like I think Square Enix should have been for the past 20 years on top of the JRPG thing. I think they should have been producing high quality games on Nintendo consoles in niches that Nintendo themselves did not cover. They should have been producing the high quality JRPG franchises that Nintendo themselves do not make. Like Dragon Quest should have been Nintendo exclusive. Final Fantasy should have been Nintendo exclusive. Kingdom Hearts should have been Nintendo exclusive. Like companies like Capcom and Konami could have like released their niches, you know, run and gun shooters and like Mega Man games and stuff like that, stealth games, Metal Gear games, like new Mystical Ninja games. Like they could have done anything. They could have like done anything on Nintendo consoles, but instead what they chose to do was take PlayStation money and try to shit on Nintendo for 20 years. And now look what happened. You know, Squaresoft went bankrupt. They had to come crawling back in Nintendo in 2002 to develop games for the Game Boy Advance in order to like bounce back from that. What did they do then? They produced Final Fantasy 13, completely destroyed the Final Fantasy brand. Like, had to spent like the past decade trying to put out like Final Fantasy 15, failed at that, and now they've developed a cult following who of their small developers who are producing the games that they used to make on Nintendo's hardware. Stuff like Bravely Default, stuff like Octopath Traveler, stuff like Triangle Strategy, stuff that they used to produce, stuff that people used to be like, and like that's just not enough anymore. Like, it's not enough for them to produce good games that I want to play. Like, I want them to stop producing this bullshit that I do not care about, right? Like, they need to stop with their PlayStation-focused nonsense and develop exclusively for Nintendo consoles. They need to make the switch. Final Fantasy 17 should be turn-based, and it should be a Nintendo exclusive.